Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand a business, to go on vacation, or to buy a new car. But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very risky, according to the Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper. I just read this shocking report. It made my hair stand on end. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you, and I for the government, and then report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. Get the Secret War on Cash now by calling 1-800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. You must read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 1-800-289-2646 or click the link below. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading this special report. Give them a call today at 1-800-289-2646 or click the link below to register. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Today I want to talk about something that's honest to God been keeping me up at night. And that is the US dollar collapse 2016, but updated. Because I've talked about this in countless videos, thousands of videos now in circulation, warning that they're only building a bigger bubble, that none of our problems have been solved since 2008 and 2009. They've only been magnified. We see this with a $4.5 trillion debt balance at the Federal Reserve, something that's completely unheard of, and nobody in their right mind knows how they're going to unwind. With a massive accumulating national debt and all of these funny money programs literally throwing the kitchen sink in. Whether or not it's quantitative easing, or it's Operation Twist, or it's buying mortgage-backed securities, or it's NERP to ZERP to all these interest rate shenanigans. At some point, we're going to have to pay the piper. And as we saw in 2008 and 2009, it's not the banksters that pay, it's you.
Let me ask you this, just briefly, on the $4.5 trillion balance sheet that the Fed now has, as we look at where we are today, has there been any thought looking in the rearview mirror that might have been good to unload some of that earlier so there was additional ammunition should that be needed in the future?
Well, so I think the thinking about additional ammunition is that the best ammunition we have and the single most reliable and predictable tool for affecting the stance of monetary policy is variations in short-term interest rates. We have a choice between selling off assets or raising short-term interest rates.
Now, I'm talking about as the economy goes the other direction. And I guess the question then is, so you've got a pretty loaded up balance sheet, and I think people are beginning to observe that the Fed is probably out of ammunition unless you decided to go to negative rates. And if you could briefly, I'm not proposing this, I'm just observing what's happening around the world and what's happening here in our own country. I think people are waking up and realizing that the Fed really has no real ammunition left.
Now, I don't want to just talk about the negatives today. I don't want to just talk about what's coming. And keep in mind, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly how things play out. I'm not making predictions. But what I do know, and what I understand is math. And I understand at some point there's going to be a reversion to the mean. So when you blow magnificent bubbles, eventually they pop. You know, what did your mom or dad always tell you? What goes up must come down. We know, for example, this is just a fact, that business cycles last typically between 5 and 8 years. So if we have an expansion and there's growth, there's typically an expansion from 5 to 8 years, followed by a recession for 5 to 8 years, followed by another expansion, and then a recession. And at times, when things are magnified, like what we're seeing today, or what we saw in the 1930s Great Depression, or we saw in 2008 and 2009 with digital bank runs and trillion-dollar bailouts, you have a crash. You have a economic calamity, a collapse. You have potentially a depression. And it's honest to God, not just what I think is coming, it's what is coming. Because again, it is math. It is not my opinion, and it is not a prediction. But more importantly, instead of just talking about what's coming, I also want to give and provide some actionable strategies, because nothing that I talk about is fear-mongering. It's real. And I want to empower you guys, and I want to give you guys some actionable alternatives to prepare for this kind of thing. Now, I mentioned this in a previous video. I've recently partnered with a company out here in the Valley of the Sun, Arizona, a family business, people that I know very well, an honest, good-hearted business that wants to help people. Their name is Swiss America. They're a precious metals dealer here locally, not too far from our studio here in Scottsdale. You can download a free report. It's information. It's free. You can't say no to that. There's no obligation. All you have to do is put in your name, put in your email address and your phone number, and they'll send you a free report that I put together personally with them, talking about the secret war on cash and what all of this means. So let me give you a little bit of the inside track here. We're seeing now in Europe, for example, a ban on $500 euro bills. A ban on it. Why? Ask yourself that question. Now, their official story is, well, they're banning it because, drug dealers are using it and there's like illegal activity. The same reason they want to attack digital currency and Bitcoin. Bullshit. We know that's not the truth. The reason they're attacking these large denominated bills, and they've been talking about this, eliminating the $100 bill here in the United States of America, is because there is a secret war on cash. You see, they don't want you to have access to your money. So let's say we just wake up tomorrow from a nice, pleasant sleep or a nap that you were taking in the afternoon, and suddenly you can't withdraw your cash from the bank. Okay, we've seen this with Chase Bank recently with non-customers not allowing to take out high denomination bills out of the ATMs. What if that happens? What if you don't have access to your cash? Why are they turning interest rates negative? They're turning interest rates negative because they want you to spend the currency. They don't want you to try to withdraw and create what is known as a bank run, all of your assets from the bank at any given time. Because again, if you're educated, you understand we live in a fractional reserve banking system. For every dollar that is deposited in a bank, $10 of that are loaned out to other banks, and then it's magnified to infinity, which makes up the criminal Federal Reserve printing and backing our currency by nothing. It's fiat paper. They just print as much as they want. So actionable strategy. So, okay, Christopher, what does this mean? Okay, yes, I'm in agreement. This is a freaking giant bubble. None of our problems have been solved. Okay, so there's going to be a debt collapse. The dollar is going to collapse in the not too distant future. It's going to devalue, as we've seen over a long curve over the past 50 to 100 years, especially when we went off the gold standard that only became magnified. Well, what do I do? Number one, action strategy. And I've talked about this extensively recently because I'm really, really passionate about it. And I want you taking action. I don't want your head in the sand. I've talked about asset allocation. You've probably heard your mom and dad talk about this. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, diversify. I go over this in detail with a lot of our videos. You can go back in our archive. But one of those most important buckets, in addition to asset allocation, one of those most important buckets is gold. Physical. Not GLD, not the ETF, which can go poof overnight, just like fiat currency, but actual physical gold bullion. It can be coins, it can be collectibles, it can be silver. Some people prefer gold or silver. I personally prefer gold. Now, in my model portfolio allocation, I recommend anywhere from 7.5% to 15% or more, depending on your unique situation. Talk to a financial advisor. Okay, don't take my word for it. Everybody's situation is unique. Doesn't predict future returns. You guys know all that stuff. But I've recommended 7.5% to 15% roughly, in my humble opinion, should be allocated to gold. Why? Because people like Donald Trump, people like me, prognosticators that you hear on CNBC, the people that have actually gotten it right, by the way, the people that have actually called the duck a duck and called it right.
It's impossible to predict the time when confidence will be lost, but it can come quickly. Resorting to buying other paper currencies will not be of much help. When the dollar crashes, most likely the purchasing power of all currencies, since all currencies hold dollars as a reserve, will go down as well. This means that dollars and other currencies will go into buying consumer items, precious metals, and other physical properties. Consumer prices will soar, as well as interest rates. The central bank will lose control, and the more they inflate, the worse the confidence becomes. The interest rates will respond to these efforts by rising sharply. If the Fed tries to reverse the run on the dollar, interest rates will also soar, and the pain on the American citizens will be of such proportion that political chaos will result. Either scenario leads to political and social chaos, the third event, and the most dangerous.
you want some kind of allocation in that most important bucket, which I believe to be gold bullion, because in the not too distant future, I wholeheartedly believe, and this is math, based on the incredible debt load that's been pumped out in recent years, U.S. Treasury bonds will no longer be a riskless asset. Let me repeat that. The long-standing, tried and true assumption that U.S. Treasury bonds are a near riskless investment will change sometime in the very near future. In our lives, when you wake up from that nap or you get up in the morning and all of a sudden there's going to be a massive withdrawal from creditor nations. This is how wars start, by the way. It's something we're already engaged with. Who's the largest creditor here in the world to the United States federal government? Because we all know the United States federal government is the largest debtor. Isn't that something to be proud of? The largest debtor in the United States is the United States of America. Countries like China are going to begin massive withdrawals. Again, there's a war on cash. If they know that these assets are no longer riskless, and all of this is baked into the pie right now, it's why they've established the AIIB, the counterpoint to the World Bank and the IMF, the Western-dominated money printers and loan sharks of the world. All of a sudden, the dollar is going to continue, as it already is, devaluing, and there's going to be a collapse in the value of currency.
The IMF's executive board decided that the renminbi qualified for the SDR basket under existing criteria. This determination, which has been made today, will become effective on October 1st, 2016, in order to allow for the institutions, the central banks, and all users of SDRs to prepare for that new basket of currencies.
We see this around the world. We see this in Venezuela with hyperinflation. We saw this in the Weimar Republic, one of the reasons World War II began, and it ushered in the political vacuum of dictators that Western nations went to war with. All of this is baked into the pie. How do you protect yourself? With an asset allocation, and also what I believe to be the most important part of that bucket, gold, physical. Again, click that link below right now. Visit our partner, Swiss America. Okay, I've got a link there. Enter your information, your name, your email, and your phone number. Download a free report. No obligation. It's education. Again, I've been talking about this recently. I read voraciously. I'm reading 400 plus pages a day, book after book. Why? Because time is limited. Honestly, it's keeping me up at night. There's a healthy sense of fear. But you know what it's also given me? Peace of mind. Because I'm taking action. I'm getting my ducks in a row before that next financial crash, before that next event. Donald Trump just recently spoke about this, how potentially if he was elected president of the United States, he would just default like he does with his real estate businesses, and the fancy term is restructure the debt. That means taking haircuts. That means that the largest assumed risk-free asset in the world, the US dollar, would no longer be a risk-free asset. And that would have profound economic repercussions globally in US financial system. I'm actually not even sure if Donald Trump understands the ramifications of it, because he's taking more of a business approach to understanding government debt. And I'm not quite sure he honestly gets it. The impact that this would actually have. It would be a collapse of the dollar overnight. A collapse would mean that the dollar dropped maybe 30% in a heartbeat, and that debtor nations like China begin massive withdrawals. And again, I also think this will be part of war and the war narrative that's coming, because we've seen this in history before. What happened after the 1930s Great Depression that took about 2 decades for us to break even after the stock market lost roughly 80% of its value? Well, it took a freaking world war. It took World War II, millions of people dead. Talked about this a little bit recently in some of my on-demand stuff about how there's going to be a coin. I really believe that's going to happen. I think likely the coin will make a part of war. Again, that's how you get rid of people. Another reason, math, there's going to be a reversion to the mean. Again, unless the Federal Reserve, this New World Order paradigm, is able to manage this perfectly into this quote-unquote beautiful soft landing, unless they're able to do that, and I honest to God hope that they do, and at that point, you'll still be fine because you've got your asset allocation, you've got gold, you're properly diversified across different asset classes. That's great. That's a wonderful world. If they get it wrong and they can't manage it, and it looks like 2008, 2009 again, and it's an engineered collapse, like what we've seen in the past, that's what the wealth transfer was, again, getting ready for the culling. Again, people think this is fear-mongering, they think it's conspiracy, but it's not. Actions speak louder than words. Well, then you'll know you'll be prepared for what's coming. you'll have that peace of mind when, for some reason, you can't access your cash at the bank. Because as they've done in Europe, you can't get $500 euros anymore. And what they might soon do here in the United States, you might not be able to get high denominated $100 bills. It's not because of drug dealing. Okay, it's not because bad apples are trading currency back and forth. It's because they do not want you to have access to your own money. Again, negative interest rates means, Warren Buffett talked about this recently at his conference, that means that if you had $1, for example, and there's negative 2% interest rates, you'll only get 98 cents back. In that case, what did Warren Buffett say over the weekend? I talked a little bit about this. He said he would consider taking all of his billions of dollars in cash on Berkshire Hathaway's balance sheet and depositing it into his own personal vault, turning the door, locking the key, and throwing it away. He'd be better off doing that. You know, I don't like Warren Buffett. I think he's a scumbag, but he does know money. He's also properly diversified, and he also has a proper asset allocation. Again, folks, I want to give you some actionable strategies to prepare so you have peace of mind, so that you're not just living in fear. Time is limited. This is coming. It's knocking on your door. Click the link below right now. Get a free report from Swiss America, put together by me personally. Download The Secret War on Cash. No obligation. Just get some information. Give these guys a call. Ask some questions. They're here to help. They're here to consult you and hold your hand, so to speak, to help you so that if you're not already doing this, you can start. And if you're already doing this, you can work with a company that I've actually personally vetted. An honest, good, family-owned business. It's been in the valleys of the sun forever. That's Swiss America. Click the link below right now. Register for free. Take action now. Have that peace of mind. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard-hitting it in your face. And again, click that link below right now to register.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I thought the Fed would have trouble a year ago in terms of raising rates, because a stronger dollar hurts the exporters, and a weaker dollar, which means a stronger yen or whatever it may be, that helps exports. There's no question about it.
Like you said, that you realize how much you don't know when you see some of
the
these
cross currents. I mean, there's just a million of them.
But you must have spent a lot of time thinking about what central banks are doing around the globe, because it has a huge impact.
It's a fascinating movie to watch. I don't try to make money off the movie, but what we have seen in the last 7 years, I think very, very, very few people would have dreamt in 2009 that we would have this duration of low rates and have people still expecting low rates after the 7 years or so we're up this. No, it's a different world, and it's certainly a different world when you have a lot of money in euros, as we do, and you're better off putting it under your mattress than in a bank.
There's nothing you can do about that with some of the reinsurance companies or the insurance companies, right?
There might be a few things we could do. I think Munich Re was talking about actually converting a lot of their short-term funds to actual currency and sticking them in a vault, but we haven't gotten there yet. There could be a point where you'd really want to start withdrawing currency. That would be an interesting point. If currency in a bank is worth less than currency in your hands or in a mattress, that could produce something in the way of behavior that nobody's ever anticipated.
You're talking about a potential run on the banks, essentially?
Well, if the deposits aren't doing anything there, and they charge you for having them there, I might contemplate.